time once again to go racing.
The pressure is really on now.
And it's pole position.
And it's pedal to the metal. Go, go, go!
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to PSGL, round number 9 of the PlayStation calendar, and we are here at the brand new circuit to the F1 game. The last time a Formula 1 game had Portugal on it was 1997 on the PlayStation. That was Estoril. This is Portimao, round number 9 of the season at the Algarve International Circuit for the Portuguese Grand Prix. My name is Luke Etheridge. Alongside me in the commentary box, as always on a Monday evening, is Mark Alimonda. Mark, how are you doing?
Very well, and this is a unique situation for the top tier of PlayStation tonight. A brand new circuit that we've never had before. So no historical data to look back on, no former races. So it's a real chance for someone to put their stamp on this particular race as the first winner of the Portuguese Grand Prix in PSGL F1 history. So that is unique in itself.
Yeah, definitely will be a unique experience indeed. There will be a slight delay to getting qualifying started. There have just been a few issues setting the lobby up, but trust me, you will not miss a minute of action. And I think before we start off today's stream, there's obviously been some quite big news in the league racing world that has already been alluded to in the chat, which might have an effect on Friday night's action in the PSGL VRT Esports Cup, and that is obviously Comrade Gaming, CRG, have folded. News which I definitely didn't expect, Mark, and I don't think anyone, perhaps those even in CRG, probably didn't expect it.
No, I mean, a real shock in the F1 game community, that is for sure. I mean, CRG, you know, arguably the biggest esports team name outside of the official esports series, and, you know, some fantastic drivers, champions in many leagues, including our own. And yeah, reading the explanation, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it is a real shame that CRG is going, because I had tremendous respect for them. Never really, you know, I never was involved with them apart from, you know, talking to a lot of their drivers a lot of the time. But, you know, I had a lot of respect for them and what they stood for. So, yeah, a massive loss for the F1 community in my view.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've had a bit of a relationship, obviously, with VSR from the commentary side of things, and there was always that healthy rivalry. And I think the esports world and the league racing community, I think it'd be a better term to use, kind of needs that other team to step up. We'll have to wait and see how it goes, of course. But going back to PSGL, coming back to last week's race at the Chinese Grand Prix, a very exciting race indeed. And Duncan claiming another victory, this time out on track, avoiding any controversy of getting his teammates any penalties. There was a bit of controversy behind. You might remember Gamer took second after taking advantage of a risky, shall we say, last lap move from Joost on Casper, which bumped both of them. Well, bumped Casper down 2 places. Ended up with Joost staying in that 3rd position. He didn't get a penalty for that, so no real massive results change. Joost, though, still leading the championship by 9 points. Now from VSR Duncan. Blizzard drops down to 3rd. He is 24 points behind. And then you've still got that big gap for the battle for 4th place. Georgia's Midnight, Leo, Casper, Gamer moving back into the top 10. Jordan and Daneko are rounding out that top 10 drivers. Daneko sneaking back in there as well. It's, again, we said it last week, it is looking like a bit of a 3-horse race. Duncan, definitely the form man though. First man to get back-to-back wins this season.
Yes, more points than anyone in the last 2 races with those 2 victories. I mean, Austria was kind of slightly fortuitous in that there were penalties and all sorts going on, but no arguments that he was fully deserving of his victory at the Shanghai International Circuit. It was a really closely fought battle for most of that first stint against Joost, but then the way the pit stops working out, Duncan overtaking Joost just before they pitted proved crucial, because it allowed him to feed out ahead of most of the traffic and let him build up a gap, while Yus had to end up battling the likes of Casper and Gamer late on, and ultimately lost some ground, but still has a 9-point lead. But yeah, I mean, what a championship. 8 rounds so far, and we've seen some amazing action, so many different drivers on the podium. So the fact that we're this far into the season, we still have a close championship battle for both the drivers and constructors is fantastic news for all watching.
Yeah, certainly. Won't be too long now before we do head into qualifying. The lobby is almost ready, but before we get there, I will quickly show you the Constructors' Championship standings. Duncan's 2 wins in a row, and Casper finishing 4th for the second time in 3 races. Mean Mercedes actually jumped up from 3rd to 1st in the Constructors' Championship, swapping places with Alpha Tauri. Red Bull in between them, just 11 points between the top 3 teams. Williams with Gamer getting a podium, and Will scoring his first points in a while as well. 2nd and 5th for Williams last time, bumped them up from 9th to 4th place. You can see how close it is at that stage, and Aston Martin still sort of marooned at the bottom on 11 points at the moment. All really looking forward to this race, more because of the fact that we don't really know what to expect. We've got no previous data to base it off, apart from a few of the drivers had a bit of a go in the PC tiers last week. That's all the knowledge we've got of this circuit.
Yes, I mean, I personally think it's a fantastic circuit. A very, very different kind of circuit. The way it's almost roller coaster like, the way it goes, the undulations up and down through the circuit. Kind of like Circuit de Catalunya on steroids in a way, because particularly Sector 3. Sector 3 is how Barcelona should be. You know, without that ghastly chicane and a great run up onto the main straight. I think if Barcelona did that, you'd see a lot more overtaking and a more exciting race, in my view. But this particular one, I think it's been a successful transition for this track, very modern track, into the sport. Whether it will stick around on the real calendar for beyond this season, who knows? Because there's a lot of big money tracks, you know, coming into the sport, like Miami next year, and of course Saudi Arabia this year. So it may not have a place on the calendar regularly, but while it is on this game, we should definitely enjoy it. And we've seen some great races. You know, PC was fantastic last week, the season finale. And I expect, given what we've seen so far this season, Luke, another brilliant race tonight.
Yeah, certainly. We've had so many classic races already this season. I mean, go first race of the season, late safety car at Bahrain, Blizzard claiming victory from pole position. Probably would have made it 2 out of 2 at France if it wasn't for wet weather. Who'd have thought back then, even after Belgium, when he got 3 pole positions in a row, who'd have thought that CRG Blizzard would not have another pole position this season and not have another victory? Duncan, fantastic racing we've seen from him in Austria and China. Britain, Yost taking a win from Blizzard on the final lap. So much fantastic action. What does Portimao have in store? We'll have to wait. Quickly, you can see a bit about the track then. 4.635 kilometres, 33 laps, 2 DRS zones, 1 down the main straight, 1 down into turn 5. Not necessarily, a bit like Spain in a way, not necessarily the easiest track for overtaking.
No, because, you know, you have a very technical Sector 2, lots of locations, as you know, lesser drivers like myself have already found out. You know, going onto power a little bit too early can spin up the tyres. I mean, there's one corner in particular which everybody knows, which very much reminds me of the hairpin in Malaysia, where you can so easily spin the car. But yeah, I mean, the main straight, you will see some overtaking there, but that is if you can break apart that DRS train. I think the DRS train will be almost very Bahrain-like in the opening stint, so hopefully we'll get a variety of strategies to kind of break up the DRS train.
Yeah, certainly. We'll be interested to see what different strategies we get. We're thinking it's most likely to be a dry race, even though we did get wet weather for the F2 qualifying. It is most likely to be dry on the Algarve in Portugal, so we are expecting a straightforward one-stop strategy. Soft to medium for those inside the top 10, medium to soft for those outside the top 10, but again, small chance of weather. You never quite know what can happen. Might be able to make the undercut work as well around here. I always feel like turn 1 here, there's always a bit of a risk. It kind of makes me a bit nervous on lap 1 of the race, the way it all sorts of folds into quite a tight apex. I think we'll see a few drivers running wide at turn 1, and probably where we'll see a lot of penalties picked up in the race as well.
Yes, it's a strange turn 1. It looks wider than it actually is as you run into it, and then suddenly you're right on top of it. It's like, oh crikey, I don't have that much room actually. Going too wide there, at least one driver or the other will be forced that wide because there's very little space through that apex.
Yeah, certainly. And without further ado then, I think we've made you all wait enough. Let's head into qualifying. Drivers not yet out on track, although one thing to note, extremely overcast for qualifying at this moment in time. It does look very dull indeed. We are getting a few cars starting to head out. That is one of the Mercedes cars heading out on track. It's usually Duncan who likes being out nice and early. Got some Alfa Romeos heading out there as well. Don't think we're going to get any rain. I will quickly give you guys a quick check of the weather forecast. It's due to just be cloudy for all of qualifying, cloudy in the race, and then getting a bit sunnier later on. So that's one less variable for the drivers. We've said it's a new track. They'll have practiced it quite a bit in the dry. Doubt they've got too many laps done in the wet.
Yes, I think they'll be thankful for that, to be honest, because, yeah, as you say, I think most of them will have done the majority of their practice in dry conditions. And, you know, this track is very treacherous in the wet, having done a few sort of short races on it just to get a feel of the circuit. But, yeah, I think there's some drivers out there with a point to prove. I think Blizzard has kind of gone off the boil in the last few races. He's lost ground in the championship battle. I still think it's a 3-horse fight for the title battle as it stands, as he leaves the pit lane, following one of the Alfa Romeos ahead of him, and then quickly gets past him to start his outlap. Yeah, I mean, Blizzard had a blistering start to the season, but then it's kind of fallen away from him just a little bit. And Duncan, well, he's really risen to the challenge. Duncan had a pretty slow start in terms of the results he got, but now he is definitely the biggest threat to use at the moment. And, you know, as they say, art imitating life. It is a Red Bull versus Mercedes battle in both championships.
Yeah, certainly is. At the moment, Duncan yet to get a pole position this season. Admits that qualifying isn't necessarily his strong point. Let's see what he can do then on a hot lap of this Portugal circuit. Heading down the long straight now off that final corner, down towards the braking zone of turn 1. Quite an undulating track here through that fast right-hander there at turn 1. You see a little cut through there where they used in GP2 in 2009. Duncan locking up ever so slightly as it comes through turn number 3 there. Now through turn 4 into the second DRS straight, opening up on that Mercedes too. Probably one of the best overtaking opportunities on this track if you can stay close enough in the dirty air. The heavy braking for Torre Vip at turn number 5 on this track. Now going flat out through 6 goes Duncan, stays to the left hand side of the track into turn number 7, turn 8. Very tricky braking and turning at the same time. A lot of cars doing exactly what you've seen Duncan there, losing the rear on the exit through that corner, and that is why he's backed off. I think we'll be seeing plenty more doing that. Let's follow WR Lars then. He was flying through that part of the circuit that we've just seen Duncan have a bit of an issue through, coming through 11 and 12. He now invalidates his lap. They are not wanting to give us a hot lap at this circuit today. Blizzard kept it nice and clean at the moment, coming out of turn number 5. We said already we're going to see a lot of invalidations around this circuit, and we've already seen Duncan not invalidate but nearly lose the car as Blizzard has a slight correction on the entry to that corner there at turn number 8. It's a very tricky circuit to hook up a lap.
Yeah, certainly is. There's just so many challenging technical corners. Midnight, interestingly, and Will G deciding to get a feel of the circuit on the mediums. He said a 16.75, a decent bank of a Moggiano actually, a 16.2, which isn't far off some of the lower tier pace that we've seen previously, such as F3. Will LG then out there. Let's see, be interested to see what kind of time he can do in comparison to Midnight in terms of the mediums. I don't think they'll be finishing. Oh my goodness, he absolutely clobbered the curbs, and that's really lost him some speed. And straight into the 15s we go with Blizzard. That is a really good opening salvo from Blizzard there as he looks to get his championship battle back on that. But here comes Will LG then, heading across the line. Let's see what his medium time is in comparison to Midnight. Can he go any quicker in terms on the yellow rubber? No, slightly slower, nearly 3/10.
Yeah, Leo was looking pretty good on his soft tyre run as well. I think we've still got Jordan here. He's backed off on his first run. Casper coming around the final corner then, up the hill, staying over to the right-hand side. Notice for deploy used on the left-hand side. You will see that quite a lot in qualifying. It's quite heavily on deployment, is this Portugal circuit. A lot of drivers will go over their maximum allotted for a lap, so that is one thing that we're going to have to just watch out for. See, we've got approaching the end of a lap at the moment. I think a lot of the drivers that we're seeing have actually done their first runs and are heading back to the pits. Dan Urco on his at the moment. Correction through turn 8, but nowhere near as dramatic as what we saw from Duncan earlier. And it's a CRG 1-2 at the moment. Blizzard ahead of Gamer. Valters in 3rd. Ogiano 4th. Georges in 5th place. Gamer, this is his 3rd race he's done for PSGL around this circuit. He got a top 5 in PC F2. Didn't do quite as well in F1, but I don't think anyone was expecting an amazing performance from him. He's got that race experience that a lot of these others might not have.
Yeah, well, one drive to keep an eye on before we talk about game again. Xander has gone fastest in Sector 1 and Sector 2. So this is looking like a really good time from Xander to start his qualifying on. Currently P13, no time set, of course. So heads to the line now. What can Xander do? He's had a pretty decent, and that's P4. So that's lost a little bit of time in the final sector. Was running out of deployment a little bit at the end of the lap, so that may have cost him a tenth or so, not having that full battery on the main straight. But yeah, up to P4 he goes. He's had a decent opening campaign in this top tier. But yeah, Gamer, you know, he's been in the top tier many seasons. Championship runner-up twice in his history in this tier. But yeah, the fact that he's already raced, you know, in PSGL here may give him an advantage, because he'll know, sort of have a pretty good idea what the strategy should be now. And especially if some of those previous races he got the strategy wrong, he'll know which one not to go for.
Yeah, certainly. Fusilio was trying to go for a second run here on that same set of tyres. He's gone faster in the first sector than his previous best. I noticed the red light flashing on the back of the car, and you can see his battery deployment very low at this moment in time, just solidifying what we said earlier on. You have got to be very careful around this circuit, heading through the final sector now, nice and clean. Kept it there through turn number 12, into 13, climbing up the hill ever so slightly, fastest of everyone in that middle sector. He's very light on fuel, of course, coming through turn number 14, and now he runs very wide there, gets away without invalidating it. It's all about being flat to the finish here. What can Fusilio do? He dives it straight into the pit lane. It's very misleading pit entry. I think we'll be seeing quite a lot of that tonight. Still, we've got Blizzard and Gamer as your fast drivers. Fede's gone up to 5th. He's a reserve in the Aston Martin. We've actually got another reserve in the Aston Martin as well tonight. Lars is reserving. Neither of the full-time Aston Martin drivers are out there. Jack Eater's gone up to 9th. He did manage to get a second clean run in, so both Hassers feeling, at least for the majority of the lap, judging by Fusilio, that you can get a second run out of these soft tyres, in common with what we've seen a lot this season, if we're being honest.
Oh, and again, watching Benjamin invalidated his first run, and again he's run wide in Sector 1, and that's ended his attack. So he's going to probably just back off and try and go, if he's got the fuel, to go for a second run. But yeah, Benjamin having a tricky qualifying session so far. Duncan is out there at the moment. His best time being a 1:31.116, which of course is not representative whatsoever what his actual pace will be. But let's see what Duncan can do. He's just heading through to the end of Sector 1 right now.
Yeah, Duncan heading through Sector 1. It was really about Sector 2 where it all started going wrong for Duncan the last time. 21.7, so nearly 2 steps up on what he did first time around, and comparable to what we've seen from those at the top of the standings. 21.7 from Blizzard and Xander in that first sector. And if you're wondering where we are getting this data, it is from the IGK task system. If you use !help and then bump over to the live chat, not the top chat, that will give you all the help commands that you need, as it does look to have been a lot cleaner so far from the man second in the championship, looking to make it a hat-trick of wins. Of course, he's 10 seconds up at this moment in time, so his personal deltas aren't too important. Does look like it will be a tiny bit off Blizzard's time at the moment. Whether he'll be able to find time in this final sector and become the second man to get into the 1 minute 15s, we'll have to wait and see. Half the session to go. What can Duncan do? First driver to really set a second lap in anger. 1:16.049 puts him onto the front row of the grid for now. But of course, track evolution, we'll be expected to see a lot more drivers improve.
Yeah, so 3 of the drivers who have really been making strides in PSGL in the last few races currently occupying the top 3. Use, though, he's sort of come out of his slumber in terms of his qualifying. What's it going to be for him? It's straight into pole position. Wow, how typical is that? The Verstappen of this league straight into P1 with a 1:15.827 with just over 8 minutes of the session to go. Wow, what a way to welcome yourself to the qualifying session.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic camber shot there of Jordan coming through turn number 16. He heads across the line, gets himself up into third, also into the 1 minute 15.9. We did predict before qualifying 1:15.8, 1:15.9 would be a pole position. We might even see the driver get into the 1:15.7 on their final run, judging by some of the times that we are seeing being set at the moment. Leo, he's just coming through the first couple of corners now. We have got a Mercedes heading towards the end of their lap, but that is Duncan. Let's see what the other one can do. Casper, so close to getting a podium so far this season. He has just backed off on this run. 4th place in Silverstone, 11th in Austria, although was leading that race for quite a while. 4th place in China. He's he's starting to pull up some form, and he's only 4 points off of 4th place in the championship at the moment, despite being in 7th place. That best of the rest battle definitely looks to be hotting up.
Yeah, and that's really good news for Mercedes Constructors' championship chances if he starts putting on form, because last time out they got the most points of any combination has managed all season, 24 points, which swung them from P3 in the championship to P1. So if Casper can keep this up, he's going to be a very valuable number 2 for Duncan's championship bids and the Constructors battle later on in the season.
Yeah, Leo's backed off on his lap again, so not ideal for the Alpine driver, despite him showing good pace on his first run. Fusilio, he looks like he might be going for a second run once again. I think he did invalidate that previous one, down in 16th place at this moment in time again, a 21.7 in that first sector. Fastest first sector is now actually briefly belonged to Fede, because the man currently second place in this qualifying session has just gone and beaten that. 21.65 for Blizzard through the first sector. It seems to be all or nothing from Blizzard in qualifying. He's either right there at the top of the order, or he's languishing down in 16th, 17th places. This looks to be the old Blizzard that we saw at the start of the season.
Yeah, he is really attacking every single corner, really aggressive. The car looks very nicely tuned up here so far on this particular lap, and indeed this session being P2, that he was the first driver to get into the 115s pretty much right at the start of the session. But yeah, he's looking like someone who's perhaps maybe taken a little step back after the recent races and think, okay, what worked at the start of the season for me, let's try and get back into that form. And again, going really fast in sector 2, slightly less time this time, but across the line he goes, and it's pole again, so the bar gets lowered again. So Blizzard and Hughes really dueling over this pole position. Duncan has a bit of work to do.
Yeah, he does. Dan Erko comes across the line, gets himself up into 4th place. It was a very fast middle sector from the Ferrari man. Has had a podium early on this season at his home race at the Italian Grand Prix. Came home in 3rd place. His best finish apart from that was actually last time out at China. Did finish in 6th after a steward's inquiry removed his 3-second time penalty. So it's Blizzard Joost Wolters. We haven't even spoke about him. So much has been going on in this session. We forgot to mention that we've got a complete new guy in the Alpine, new full-time driver replacing M Short. Was leading the F2 championship, so he does come here with that confidence that he's doing pretty well on that game. He was fairly convincingly leading that championship as well. I think it was more than a race win going into this round. Obviously won't be able to win that now, but thought he'd rather test himself against the best in F1. Can't really blame him. Looking pretty good at the moment for Wolters. Yeah,
well, Wolters has got experience in the top tier, had some tremendous performances in the top tier in the past, and such was the quality of what was available in terms of the evaluations at the start of this game period for F1 2021. The fact that he was in F2 and not F1 just showed you how many drivers PSGL had to choose from for the start of the season. But yeah, definitely well deserving of a promotion to F1 and in P3 at the moment. So certainly showing that he's not here to make up the numbers.
Yeah, certainly. He's really got nothing to lose either. Just trying to prove himself, prove that he has a seat for next season. Of course, season 30 still a long way away. It will be 2022 before we even start getting into all of that. Benjamin down in 19th at the moment. He's gone out on track a bit earlier. Wouldn't surprise me if he's put a bit more fuel in that McLaren as well, just to try and make sure that he does get a clean run in. He's yet to get a clean run in. Lars has yet to get one in, and Midnight's only done a fast lap on the medium tyres at the moment, and seeing as Will gained about 7/10 of a second on his run, you'd expect Midnight definitely to be pushing into that top 10 as well. But let's see what Benjamin can do. He's a man who's had a pole position so far this season. Earlier on, he's had a podium as well. Showed some good form towards the end of last season. Not quite found that same form this season. Did start off as a reserve, of course. Currently 14th in the championship on 13 points. And I think straight away there, just getting it wrong through turn 1 and backing off. So easy to ruin your lap early on. At least, though, he hasn't gone through the tyres. He hasn't gone through his ERS.
And also he hasn't invalidated, and that's good news for him. So yeah, hopefully he has got the fuel, otherwise he will be starting, unless Lars doesn't set a time, flat last on the back row. So yeah, I mean, turn 1, again, it's a very, very tricky corner. In some ways it's like Australia, turn 1, the way, you have to get that combination of braking and turning so spot on, because it's a faster turn 1 than what you normally get at most tracks where it's a fairly heavy braking zone, or it's sort of a flat out, like Russia, the first sort of true corner, and then you have another braking zone after that. So yeah, Benjamin, all the runs, I've sort of seen all his runs, and he's really struggled with Sector 1 in particular. He's had to pretty much abort all his runs in Sector 1, so he'll get one more chance at it if he's got the fuel.
Yeah, certainly. We'll have to wait and see. I think he should be able to save some at least. Won't be too bothered if he does run out on his outlap. Will LG, who is having a bit of a tribute gamer tag tonight. I sincerely hope he made a new account and didn't actually pay to change his name for that. But he's running with CRG tonight rather than his usual VRT. Will G at this moment in time, 14th in qualifying on a 1:16.305. Nice and perfect pretty much through that part of the circuit, coming through turn number 8 there, where we've seen a lot of drivers get it wrong, heading towards this final sector of the lap. See what he does through sector 2, slightly up at this moment in time. Needs to find nearly 0.2 of a second if he wants to get himself into the top 10. I'd say to solidify the top 10, he's going to have to get ahead of his teammate and possibly ahead of Ogiano as well. Fede just making sure that he gets well out of the way. That's really the last corner that you have to think a lot about. Turn number 15, turn 16, it's just hug the apex, stay close to that curb, head towards the finish line. Will G gets himself up into 9th place, just ahead of his teammate. Much better in the final sector from Will on that occasion. We are seeing a few more drivers now starting to improve, of course. We are getting towards the end of this qualifying session, and Joost, fastest of anyone in the middle sector.
Yeah, and George is just setting the fastest lap of anybody in Sector 1. So yeah, the track evolution is coming in the last few minutes. So Hughes now trying to get onto the power as early as he can through that flowing right-hander that seems to last forever before you get to the main straight. This is looking very good for Hughes. Doesn't need to find too much time to get onto pole position, and he does it. Oh, 15.6. Wow, what a Sector 3 that was. Blimey.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic final sector there from Joost. I noticed his deployment ended a lot later than what we've been seeing from a lot of the other drivers, so maybe a conscious choice not to use as much, perhaps, in some of the twistier parts of the circuit, perhaps even in this final sector, just save a bit coming through 13. Well, for 14 and 15, I should say, where Georges is coming through now. He's made a mistake on his lap. Ogiano gets himself up into 3rd place, so we are starting to see a few more improvements from different drivers now as we are getting towards the business end of this session. Midnight heads towards the finish line. What's it going to be from him? 1:16.3, only gets himself into 17th. I wonder whether we're seeing another improvement from him. Blizzard going faster than anyone in the first few sectors at this moment in time. Well,
invalidation. Blizzard just invalidated. Oh, he just absolutely smashed the Sector 2 best time. But yeah, that's an invalidation. So that is session done. What is Duncan doing?
He's improving at this moment in time, but this is a second lap on those tyres. He saved himself a bit of ERS. Walters was fastest of anyone in the first sector briefly before he made a mistake, so he won't be improving on his time. Cheeky little bit of slipstream there from Duncan. Gets himself up into 3rd position, 10th to 3rd. Less than 1.5 tenths faster than his earlier best time. We are now really at the crunch point of this qualifying session. Jordan coming through the final corners now through 15 and 16. He's got a Haas car just ahead of him. Gamer, he was improving as well, I believe, at one point, so we'll see where he goes in the order. P3 from Gamer. Jordan takes that P3 off him as well, so we are starting to see some really good times at this moment. Leo, what's he going to do then? He's slightly down at the moment, showed some pace on his first run. It's not gone to plan since then for the Alpine driver. Can he get himself into the top 10? He's out of deployment, and he's still out of that top 10 as well. He is in 12th place. I don't think anyone else is improving. It looks like Georges, yeah, he's actually finished in this session. I think that's pretty much it then for qualifying. And it is Joost and Blizzard, our top 2. Duncan got a few cars in between him and his championship rivals.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be one of the best qualifying laps of the season from Hughes. I mean, to have that sort of advantage. I mean, the Sector 2 and Sector 3s he did. Sector 3 wasn't purple, but I just watched the whole of it. He was just absolutely at ease with the car and just on rails almost, and you know, nearly 2 tenths clear of Blizzard. That is impressive. That's one of the larger gaps we've seen, because every session has been settled by less than a tenth almost this season, but this one, I mean, that is a huge gap relatively speaking.
Yeah, certainly. You don't really see gaps that big in league racing, especially not in the top tier here at PSGL. It is well, consider that. We look at the gap between Yost and Blizzard, 0.163 seconds. That is bigger than the gap between Blizzard and Volters in 7th place at this moment in time. Another good lap from Oggiano as well.
Yeah.
We're seeing his teammate Georges go round, but another good lap from Oggiano. Gets himself up into 6th. He got points last time out. He showed last race in China that he's got that consistency. Maybe could turn it into a good result once again.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some drivers having slow start season, but yeah, definitely coming to the fore now. But yeah, it's Xander in P10. That's probably the position you don't want to finish. I think there's going to be some interesting stuff on the alternative strategy outside the top 10.
Yeah, most certainly. But for qualifying then, it is used on pole position for the 4th time now this season. 4th time in the last 6 races, in fact. He's doing a fantastic job in qualifying all of a sudden. Blizzard is 2nd, Jordan, Gamer, Duncan in 5th, Oggiano, Volters, Daneco, Georges, Xander. All the rest of the top 10, Fusilio will have 3 choice of tyres in 11th place, as well Leo, Will G, Benjamin, Casper, Jackita, Fede, Midnight in what could well be his last race on the PlayStation platform. And then Lars and Asacombe are the final drivers. We have got a full grid of 20. That was qualifying. 33 laps of racing, not too far away. And there's definitely some very quick drivers out there. We know Yost has managed to put in some fantastic laps. Penalties could well be crucial. We saw a large amount of invalidations in that session.
Yes, I think unlike China, there could be a bucket load of penalties. And, you know, Blizzard admitted it himself a few races ago, that, you know, penalties can be a weakness of him. It has been throughout his PSGL career on occasion. So Yost will be thinking that as well. I think the drivers who can keep a clean race, you know, I think the one thing they'll be thinking is, if there's a very late safety car and I've built up penalties, I am absolutely screwed. So keeping it clean, maybe, you know, losing a 10th to a lap rather than picking up those warnings penalties, I think that's going to be the crucial thing. It's going to be this could be a race, Luke, for the experienced heads.
Yeah, certainly. Just keeping it nice and calm, knowing when to attack. We've already seen it might be pretty difficult to go into turn 1. And let's not forget, it is a brand new track. Only debuted on the F1 calendar last year because of COVID here on the Algarve at Portimao. 2.891 miles, 15 corners, I should say. 2 DRS zones, of course, where you will expect to see the majority of the overtaking as we take a quick look at the tyres everyone is on in this session. Probably could have predicted that without even getting the tyres up. Top 10 on the softs, bottom 10 mediums.
Yes, I mean, it was pretty obvious. I mean, the hard is not a great tyre here. I don't expect to see that if we get a very early safety car and someone takes a gamble on, you know, not having to do that extra stop, a free pit stop, or indeed if they get some lap 1 damage and try and go as long as they can, hopefully for a safety car later on. But, you know, the softs, they're not too bad here, kind of similar to how they behave at Circuit de Catalunya. So soft to medium strategy should be possible. Might need to stretch the softs a little bit, especially those in top 10. One of the interesting elements of that qualifying session, Luke, was that a lot of drivers were having to do the tyre warm-up an extra lap. You don't normally see lots of drivers setting their times on 2 laps. So that could have an effect on when they stop.
Yeah, certainly. I think Lewis Welsh and Tom Martinez almost pull off an overcut in F2 because it was taking a bit of time for the tyres to heat up. And let's not forget the crazy first lap that happened here in 2020. I think we ended up with Carlos Sainz leading in the McLaren, both Mercedes sliding all over the place in what were very light, drizzly conditions. Casper in 15th then. Can he work his way through up on that alternate strategy? I'm sure a lot of drivers will be hoping the same. His teammate 10 places ahead of him at this moment in time. What can Duncan do? Can he close the gap up to Yost in the championship? Who knows? If he takes a victory in this race, he'll be looking very good in the championship. If things finished as they start, and that is a big if, of course, he would all of a sudden be 19 points ahead. The first time anyone this season has had more than a race victory lead. Yost on pole position, then Blizzard, who for a long time has been in the top 2. He's now down in 3rd in the championship. Can he fight back to get his first win since round number 1 of the season? Can Jordan get another win? Felt he should have had the win in Austria, ended up 10th after penalties. Or will it be someone slightly unexpected? We believe the entire grid has now lined up and we wait for the lights to come on here at Portimao. Engine notes rising, then we have got 5 lights. And we're underway with the Portuguese Grand Prix. What are the starts like? Straight away, a good start from you. No danger whatsoever of being challenged into turn number 1. Can Blizzard hold off Jordan, who tried to go around the outside and was unable to do so? And Gamer tries to throw a bit of a nose in. Looks like all the drivers have got through the first corner cleanly. Whether they'll be able to do the same through turn number 3, I'm not quite so sure. We'll have to wait and see. Looks like they have all managed to negotiate those first few corners cleanly. Fusilio's had a pretty good start to the race, gaining a few places on the medium tyres. A few cars just ducking and diving, and Fusilio trying to work one all the way around the outside of Volta's there, not able to do so. Benjamin and Xander going side by side, and the McLaren man moves up the order now into 11th place, but at the front of the field, no change. Yost got an absolutely perfect getaway. He leads by 6/10 of a second for Blizzard.
Yeah, Blizzard got slightly bogged down on the start, and that allowed Jordan to challenge him, but yeah, it was pretty solid defending from Blizzard to sort of settle down into that P2 position, and now kind of looking at the rear of the Red Bull of Use at the moment, trying to chase him down, trying to get his time to back. Oh, and we found a spinner at the back. Oh my goodness, I think the Aston Martins have collided. Oh my days. Lance Stroll looking on in absolute horror, including his father as well. Both Aston Martins off. So Fede and Lars, I don't think they got damage. I'll have to check that, but yeah, that's a nightmare start for them.
Yeah, definitely. There's no time to die for James Bond. Hopefully there's time to debrief what on earth happened with the Aston Martins then. Both of them now down at the back of the order. Leo's had to come into the pits with what must be damage off those medium tyres. He would not want to be pitted that early. And of course, both Aston Martins might have to come in as well. It is hard tyres for Leo. It will be for Fede. Lars has actually got away without any damage. You can see the biggest gainers on the first few laps then. Midnight up 3, Asacombe up 3, Benjamin and Georges as well. 2 podiums in the first 3 races for Georges. Hasn't made too many points appearances since then, unfortunately, but is still 4th in the championship, and he'll be hoping for a better race this time around, as Will and Xander getting very close there. Will just having to give way to the reigning F2 champion, of course. Now we're going to get into a period of the race what we're fairly used to on the F1 game, and Portimao doesn't seem to be any different from most other tracks. Things just seem to settle down ever so slightly. How much they're going to settle down at the front, I'm not so sure, because Blizzard already is almost outside of 1 second, and that could put him under pressure from Jordan next time around.
Yeah, DRS activated at the start of this lap, of course. But yeah, just over a second, but he'll get the slipstream, so he might be able to dip back under a second again. But yeah, Eustace's race pace so far looking pretty formidable. As Blizzard struggles again, but he has got back within a second again. But yeah, next time round, Blizzard, if he can't sort of respond on this lap to keep that gap under a second, could be under enormous pressure from the likes of Jordan and Gamer. And I think Duncan will almost be hoping for that to happen, because that may allow him to make some progress.
Yeah, Danerco's trying to make some progress as well. Has dropped behind a medium runner at the moment, so trying to work his way up the order. Obviously, now that they've got the DRS for the first time here, he's finding that quite difficult, so might need to try and find somewhere else to do it. He's able to hold a tighter line through turn number 5 there, just can't quite get close enough to the Haas car to do anything about it. Pit stops, we're expecting pretty standard, around about a third distance of the race, so anywhere around lap 11, maybe a couple of laps out either side for the drivers to come in off of the soft tyres, probably around 20-21 for drivers to come in off that set of mediums, as Danerco carrying a lot more speed than Fusilio, but it is just pretty much single file at this part of the circuit. Portimao, I think it definitely falls into the category of circuits that absolutely brilliant to drive around. Modern Formula 1 cars probably doesn't mean too much overtaking. Strategy might be key.
Yes, I mean, this track was predominantly used more for, you know, bike racing than sort of single seat racing, especially like top tier series. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't always lend itself to great racing from what we've seen so far from Portimao, but you know, a long way to go. And yeah, Blizzard definitely responded on that lap. It was actually quicker than used on that lap. I mean, that was partly down to the slipstream and DRS he was getting, but nonetheless, he couldn't afford the lap he had before where he dropped out of DRS temporarily. And it seems like at the moment the pattern is for Blizzard to be faster in Sector 1 and for Use to be quicker in Sector 2 and Sector 3. But you'd expect Blizzard to be quicker in Sector 1 because he's getting that constant tow and DRS from Use.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to have around this circuit. It's easy to flat out all the way through turn 14. We're talking 15-20 seconds here flat out. It's an incredibly long section through that long right-hander, and then obviously down towards the braking zone for turn 1. So Blizzard on the back of Yost. He was a 10 faster than Joost last time around. Still, obviously Joost with the fastest lap of the race. He will get a point for that if it stays that way, and I doubt it will. If PSGL racers have taught me anything, well, of course, as the fuel loads come down and we start seeing cars come out on fresher tyres, that fastest lap will go. 16 points for a win, 12 for second, 10, 8, and then 6 down to 1 for 5th to 10th position. But Blizzard, he's definitely closer here. Both of them have actually used quite a lot of ERS, which is a very common feature of this circuit. So it's only really if there's a safety car we're going to see drivers save any of that electrical energy. As Blizzard just stays behind for now. Further down the order, where there could be perhaps some moves happening. You've seen here Benjamin, he has just dropped behind Daneyko ever so slightly. He's down more than a second, and in pushing to try and get back within DRS range, first man to pick up a time penalty.
Yes, and unfortunately his McLaren teammate's got 2 warnings already. So McLaren not doing too well on terms of the warning, so Jordan may be picking up a penalty sooner rather than later if he's not careful. Daneyko all over the back of Fusilo ahead of him. I think Daneyko's had quite a solid season to date. 10th in the championship at the moment, a famous podium in Monza for Ferrari, of course, being the highlight, and picked up 5 points last time at China. So, you know, it's picking up points here and there, but, you know, can't be too disappointed with his efforts so far.
No, certainly. He'll be hoping to try and get away from Fusilo. I won't be too bothered as long as he's within DRS range. We might even see Daneyko, maybe Xander be the first couple of drivers to pit off the soft tyres just to try and undercut, even though we said it isn't necessarily the most successful thing around this circuit. The 2 Alfa Romeos are fairly close together at the moment. Georgia's in 6th. Ogiano just behind him in the 7th place. Has lost 1 position from his starting place. His teammate has gained a couple. Closes up with the slipstream. Both drivers having DRS. Not a lot they could do at the moment. It's at this point in the race for drivers, you've just got to stay focused, do your own thing, believe that things will come to you, and just keep it calm. Don't get frustrated. Don't make any silly mistakes. And don't pick up any penalties as Lars comes into the pits at the end of lap 4. 5 even, and retires from the race.
Yeah, well, I guess he saw no real way back into this race or had some sort of issue, but yeah, that is the first time of the race. So yeah, a disappointing evening for Lars. Obviously, he had that brilliant race at Austria where he finished 4th, and if it not were for some certain penalties, he might have even been on the podium. But yeah, he'll be looking for better things next time around. So yeah, nightmare race for the 2 Aston Martin reserves so far. As well, Blizzard got a bit of a snap on the wheel as he came out of the end of Sector 1 onto that particular DRS straight. And now he's under a bit more pressure from Jordan. The delta really here, you have to be just above 0.4 of a second to have a chance of an overtake. So if you're above sort of 0.4, it's going to be very difficult to overtake if the setups are similar.
Yeah, certainly. And you can see at the moment, it's about 0.65 coming into that DRS zone. You can see him closing in at the moment, just nowhere near close enough. And with what you were talking about earlier, Mark, it's not a heavy braking zone into turn number 1. Blizzard going through it in 4th gear, so sending it down the inside isn't exactly going to happen at that part of the circuit, unfortunately. But might still see moves happen a bit later on. There was plenty of side-by-side action across all the PC tiers. I've no doubt, as we see quite often, the second half of the race might just provide the majority of the action. The blue touch paper will be lit as soon as drivers start to come into the pits. All fairly close together, of course, which also means when you do come into the pits, you're going to find yourself in a nice bit of free air.
Absolutely. It's difficult to say really what the setups are like in terms of who's running a bit more downforce, who's running, you know, less drag on the straights, because, you know, as we know, you know, when you don't have the DRS, it can be a bit, you know, deceiving in terms of the straight line speed. I think for me it's clear to see the Use has very similar straight line speed to Blizzard, because if he was running, you know, more wing, Blizzard would be way past him easily. So I think Blizzard's going to have to try and force a mistake if he can, but again, he's outside of that delta, and if anything, Jordan's closest to him behind.
Yeah, Jordan just a bit closer this time around. Again, though, he's got even more of a tougher situation. He's really got to rely on Blizzard making a mistake coming through turn 14, perhaps even through turn 15, to have a realistic opportunity of getting that move done. But they're all doing very well at the moment. They all seem to be doing very well on the penalty front as well. 1 warning for Blizzard, 2 for Jordan. Gamer and Use without any warnings, and Duncan only has 1 at this moment in time. So Use and Gamer will be delighted with how it's going at the moment. Perhaps if the tyres start wearing down, perhaps as they get a bit lighter on fuel and start to push the car that tiny bit harder. Might just see a few more time penalties appear on the screen. Benjamin's still the only one with a penalty at this moment in time. On board with Jordan then. Let's just follow him through this. Absolutely love just the undulations on this circuit. Almost unlike anything you see in Formula 1. Almost reminds you of like an old school circuit.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the old Austria. This was long before the days of the A1 ring, when it was a much more monstrous track. It had sort of undulations like that. Blizzard's a little bit closer this time, at just over, well, he was 6/10 now, so that's a tenth closer than he was last time around. But yeah, Juice seems to get really good acceleration onto that final straight. But again, Blizzard's going to run out of runway before he can get the overtake done. But yeah, that was the closest he got. But again, he's got to be about a tenth or two closer to get that move done. Fuselo is actually gamely holding on. Wowzer's having a really good race so far in P8 for Alpine in his re-debut in the top tier PSGL F1.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure he'll be hoping to get some points in this, like you said, return to the top tier, but help Alpine in the Constructors' Championship. Yoast and Blizzard both saving a bit more ERS now, just suggesting that they're in the management phase. That some people say it's part of motor racing, some people hate it in modern Formula 1. It is what it is. Managing the tyres, managing the fuel load, not as important as it was on previous games, as they don't have the rich mix anymore. Just managing that electrical energy, that 150 plus horsepower from the hybrid units, which might be going up even more in 2025, when we might be getting Audi and Porsche, if the rumours are to be believed, of course. But we'll have to wait and see. That is for them. This is for now. And Yo's just keeping things nice and calm at the moment. Jordan, wouldn't surprise me if he's pretty early to pit. He keeps being extremely close to the back of Blizzard, but obviously with the AlphaTauri having DRS, can't really do anything. You're going to see him just closing in on the straight and just running out of room to obviously send one up the inside.
Yeah, I generally believe if Blizzard didn't have DRS, I think Jordan would be right past him, because he seems to have really strong race pace, Jordan, so far. And the game is doing a good job behind. I think Duncan's just kind of keeping watching brief. If any of the top 5 are considering an early pit stop, I think Duncan is the one for me who should do it, because he's kind of stuck at the moment. Can't really challenge any of the top 4 because they're all getting DRS of each other, and even getting like the tow of 4 cars, it's not enough for him to make any moves unless someone makes a huge mistake. But these are the top tier drivers in PlayStation on PSGL, so relying on them to make mistakes is kind of a gamble.
Yeah, I feel like you'll be waiting a long time for these to make a small little error. They practice so often, so committed. Obviously, aiming maybe one day they might even make their way into the esports, and that is why we haven't got any PC tiers this week. It's because esports is happening. F1 season obviously finished on Thursday around Portugal. The rest of the seasons, F2, will be streamed on Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, the Wednesday after, I should say. And that will be around the Canadian Grand Prix circuit. On board with Valtters then at this moment. We're coming in to lap number 11. And there we go. Those soft runners that were behind the medium runners are thinking, now's the time to go. Daneco and Xander both into the pits at the end of lap 10.
Yeah, I think that's the right move for Daneco and Xander to make at this point, and it will be useful information, particularly for use actually, because I know he is in contact with Xander during their races, to give him sort of a feel of what the medium tyres are like. So they may have a little influence on when Hughes decides to pit himself, but seems in a good position. I mean, the way the battle between himself and Blizzard works out, Blizzard gets very close on the start of turn 14, but it's the second phase of the acceleration onto the main straight through turn 15. That's where Hughes seems to have the advantage and give himself that 6/10 gap, which then means, despite Blizzard closing in, not able to get the overtake done into turn 1. That's what is making the difference for Hughes at the moment.
Yeah, certainly. You can just see that little blue spanner and screwdriver icon on your screen, suggesting that this is when he's due to come into the pits. He's not used a lot of ERS, and that is normally another indicator. Drivers really like to go some on their electrical energy, knowing that they will save plenty on the pit lane. So we'll have to see if Yost is going to come in. No, he is staying out a bit further behind. Jordan then. First one of the big guys to come into the pits as Georgia's around. That's a strange place to have an incident.
Yeah, and I think it was Welters who narrowly avoided him, because I don't think, and I'm not surprised, Midnight's retired. That's interesting. So he's had enough today. But yeah, it looked like to me George's car didn't ghost, so I think it was Wilson who had to take avoiding action and just about avoided him, so he'll gain a place at George's expense. But yeah, that was a very unusual moment. Must have just overcooked it, or maybe the rear tyre temperatures just got a bit too much just before he pitted. But that's unfortunate for George. It's another unforced error in what is a season which is kind of slowly unraveling for him after such a promising first 4 races.
Yeah, certainly. Like I said, fantastic start to the season. First 4 races, George has managed to pick himself up 26 points. He's got 4 in the last 4, and it looks like now with that spin, it might be difficult to get some points in this one. Daneyko, courtesy of that shenanigans on the pit straight, has managed to get himself ahead of Valtters and George's. Jordan finds himself in free air at the moment. I think in about the last lap, Daneyko gained about 0.6 of a second on Joost and Blizzard. So this is going to be one to watch. Joost definitely using a lot more VRS, and into the pits he comes then from the race lead. Now, can the Red Bull crew do the pit stop that we are used to seeing them doing? It is now Blizzard, the only man going that 1 extra lap, trying out the undercut. Of course, it is Joost going to get held here. No, thankfully, the pit lane ghosting system does work. Otherwise, I think that would have been certainty that Jordan will take the lead of this race. And we'll have to wait and see how close they get at the end. Jordan's definitely been pushing on this lap. He's used all of his deployment. And we're going to see a Red Bull coming out of the pit lane very shortly. But I think Joost has still retained the lead. And Jordan's actually not gained a lot in that pit stop phase. And gets himself a 3-second time penalty.
That's very interesting. Joost actually overcut Jordan there. And that could be an indicator. If Blizzard can put in a really strong lap now, I'm just seeing what kind of deployment he's using. Yeah, he's using a ton of deployment now, Blizzard. He's really pushing on his in lap. So if he's got enough performance, Blizzard may have half a chance, you know, of getting an overcut on Joost behind. So we'll have to find out. It's going to be very tight. I think it could be half a tenth there or either way. But yeah, I think Blizzard, for him, the best case scenario is he takes in that lead, of course, but I think the worst case scenario is he comes out doing that extra lap and comes out behind Jordan, who will be very difficult to pass given the race pace we've seen from him so far.
Yeah, here we go then. Blizzard is into the pits. I think Shizuo Aguiano had a slight moment just after that pit stop period. He's dropped down into 16th, a long way behind the rest of those runners that started on the soft tyres. But Blizzard into the pits, and mediums on to his Alpha Tauri. It is now a Haas 1-2. That's not something you thought you'd have said too often. Even in this season, the Haas's have been doing pretty well. Either of them yet to get a podium. Jordan sets the fastest lap of the race, and he's pushing here to try and get his way ahead of Blizzard. Isn't going to be able to do so. So it is no change in your top 3. Joost retains the net lead of this race. Then it is Blizzard and Jordan, who does have that penalty now. Gamer in a net 4th. And Duncan has actually lost a bit of time in this. He could do with pushing on his ERS and trying to get onto the back of that pack.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan, maybe he was held in the pit lane because he did lose a bit of time, it seemed. Or maybe he braked a little bit too early for the pit entry. It is a very, very fast pit entry here. It's very Monza-like in that respect. You're going at full speed. We slam on the brakes 7th or 8th gear almost into that one. So yeah, that may have been where he lost the time, because the ghosting system, you shouldn't lose the time in terms of being held up. So yeah, it's as you were, the top 5. And a long way to go in this race. I mean, the pace that they're going, there is a big train of cars for those on the mediums. Whether they'll catch them before those guys pits, it's a question. I suspect, given Casper's ability to sort of manage tyres, I think Casper will be desperate to try and come into the pit lane a little bit earlier, try and clear some of these cars, because he's been stuck all day in the lower order because he's just not able to pass anybody.
Yeah, I mean, he qualified in 15th place. He's still the 5th car on the medium tyres, as Jack Eater's had a slight moment there. Coming through turn number 2, Will G all over the back of him at this moment in time. The dirty air, though, just costing him through turn number 4. And he has to stay behind 4 now in 3rd position. Fusio has done an absolutely fantastic job on this alternate strategy. Yeah, he's used a lot of his ERS, but he's 5.7 seconds clear of everyone else on the mediums. That's quite a big gap to see one driver over the next running the same strategy, if we're being perfectly honest. Could do with saving a bit of that electrical energy, though. Otherwise, he will find himself in some big trouble. And similar to what we saw at the start of the race, Joost just seems to be able to get those tyres working earlier on. He's broken that 1 second window to Blizzard once again, and he's pushed all his electrical energy trying to do so. And so is Blizzard trying to get back into the gap. This could be crucial for the victory.
Yes, I think what Use will almost be hoping is that Jordan challenges Blizzard for that net P2 to try and, sort of waste some time and allow Use to get a little bit further away. But Blizzard and Jordan may be a bit wise to that and try and catch after you. So it seems like the pattern in this race is establishing itself, and it may come down to the last few laps here. But yeah, for the time being, Use does have a good advantage. But with the slipstream, Blizzard may get a chance to catch down. That lack of ERS, though, will be hurting Blizzard at this point.
Yeah, lack of ERS, lack of DRS as well, as Jordan sets the fastest lap of the race. He'll be wanting, if he can, to try and work his way up the order, see if he can get ahead of Blizzard and then see how much of a gap he can build, because at the moment, he would finish behind Duncan. Still, an incredibly long way to go. We've still got 18 laps remaining here at the Portuguese Grand Prix. It is a Haas 1-2, Fusilo ahead of Jack Eater. Will G still all over the back of the second Haas car. Then it is Benjamin, Casper, Asacombe. Those drivers have yet to pit. Yost, Blizzard, Jordan, Gamer are finishing off the top 10, and they have been into the pits, of course. For top 6, the only drivers yet to make the one mandatory pit stop in dry conditions, because in the wet, as Esteban Ocon proved for the first time in 24 years, you don't actually need to make a pit stop in Formula 1 if it is wet conditions, but your tyres will be extremely worse for wear at the end of it. The only water anywhere near this track, thankfully, is at the lovely Algarve coast, and at this moment in time, Will G just trying to stay in contact with Jack Eater. It's that final section of the circuit, medium speed corners, you get caught in the dirty air, you can't stay close enough to the car in front for an overtake to be a realistic option.
Yes, and that's one of the things we're hoping with the 2022 cars. There's going to be a lot less going on in terms of the aerodynamics car, less of those sort of little mini wings on the sides, that sort of thing. So that's what we're hoping to see in terms of better racing. Georges has decided to call it a day. So, he was in the pit lane when he left the session, so I think he's decided not to retire the car in case it causes a safety car. So that's sensible. But yeah, that's a disappointing day for Georges in the end there. So yeah, just not a great day of George's. That's probably his most disappointing race so far this season. So yeah, that's including him. That's basically, well, Leo's gone as well. So that's 16 runners then we got left for the time being.
Yeah, I was going to say, what promised so much for Alfa Romeo at the start of this race, with Oggiano and Georges both being up in the top 7. Georges now effectively out of this race, and Oggiano down in 15th. He's going to find it very difficult to get himself up into a decent points paying position whatsoever. We'll have to wait and see how things work out with the alternate strategy later on in the race. Yellow flags is just for the car of Leo, which is heading out onto the track as an AI car. Blizzard, he's definitely pushing at the moment because he's nearly broken that DRS race to Jordan. This race started to become stretched out for the net lead all of a sudden. Jordan about 8/10 a second ahead of Gamer. Duncan just in his own little field at the moment, and because of how ERS hungry it is, he's not got anything left to try and push his way up the order. Could do with it closing up ahead, could Duncan. Maybe seeing some battling, then he might be able to get himself back into contention.
Yeah, Hughes is just concentrating on rapidly gaining on the back of Asacombe, but he's going to get stuck. So it's almost like, I don't want to catch these guys too fast because I'll be absolutely stuck when I catch this queue of medium runners up ahead of me. And the race he's going, he's going to be on the back of them within a few laps. So he'll be praying, please pit as early as possible to get out of my way.
Yeah, certainly. If we get the interval gap up at the moment, it's 6.6 seconds. Another 5 or 6 laps at this pace, he will be catching up to the back of Asacombe. We are just going to have a quick check what the pace was last time around. Only a second faster, so might just miss out ever so slightly. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if he managed to pick up the DRS off them, as long as he doesn't get held up by that car. But it is Yost in the net lead of this race at this moment in time, looking to become the, he's the only driver to have won 3 races so far this season. He's looking to make it 4 victories. This would put him on 96 points as things stand at this moment in time, with Jordan currently getting that point for the fastest lap of that race, who will only get that, as you see in real Formula 1, if, as we've got a good battle going on here between Benjamin and Casper, we've got some on-track action, and now all of a sudden, Asacombe able to take advantage of that, gets himself ahead of Casper, looked like he'd finally had a chance of making that move, wasn't able to make it stick, and the Ferrari says thank you very much. Yeah,
nice move from Asacombe there, very opportunistic from the Ferrari driver to move our position. Casper, what a nightmare race he's having. Just it's not down to his lack of pace or anything close to that. It's just qualifying outside the top 10 here. It's almost Hungary-like so far. The only one who's really going to make this alternate strategy work is Fusilo. His progress is going to be very interesting at the end of the race. I mean, he's lapping a lot slower now than the net leaders behind him. But yeah, I mean, Fusilo's on for some really, really good points. But, you know, how much difference will fresh softs make at the end? You know, given how hard it is to overtake here.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's going to be pretty difficult. Maybe you might just be able to obviously do the cutback coming out of turn 3, give you a run into turn 4, or just later on the brakes into turn 5. I think that's where you're going to see things happen, as we do get the first driver to come into the pits off the alternate strategy. Darkside Wolf's prediction pretty much spot on. They are going to come into the pits.
Here comes Walters.
Very soon, as here comes Walters on the back of Daneyko in the DRS, gets that move done, and that is Walters up into a net 6th position.
Yeah, and he got into that delta, you know, that just over 0.4 of a second. He got into that time delta and he was able to get the move done. And that is exactly what he needs to do. And that's what Jordan's got to try and do, because he, you know, Blizzard doesn't have DRS anymore, so he should be able to take full advantage of that. But, you know, he's been building up his DRS. He's got about double Blizzard. So, you know, sooner or later, he's got to think, well, I need to try and get past Blizzard. But, you know, playing a waiting game, trying to force use into more mistakes. At the moment, he's not going to be finishing on the podium. Gamer's going to be picking up that 3rd place. But yeah, I don't know what's really going on with Duncan at the moment. Seems to have very little pace, and if anything, Walters is catching up behind him. He's in DRS of the Mercedes driver.
Yeah, certainly. Even though Blizzard's lost for DRS, he's able to keep in contact with Yost. Duncan just dropped off dramatically at the moment. 2.5 seconds behind Gamer. Wouldn't even be in penalty range of Jordan at the moment, and he's going to have to think about doing some defensive driving pretty soon. If Walters gets onto the back of him, he is within DRS range, so this could be an interesting one to watch. Exactly what Duncan didn't need. Maybe, just maybe, again, the fact that he's not got any pole positions this season. Admitted at the end of last season that qualifying was perhaps one of the things that meant he was runner-up to Wilson Hughes rather than taking the season 28 championship. Maybe that lack of qualifying pace around a circuit where it looks like track position is king. He's just proving to cost him ever so slightly. Fusilio's been into the pits. He has come out in 11th place. He's got some nice free air to use those soft tyres in. How far up the order could we see Fusilio get? He'll jump up into 8th place once the top 3 drivers come into the pits. Could he get ahead of Daneyko, Walters and Duncan and get a top 5?
Yeah, I think that's definitely on. I think he'll catch Daneyko pretty quickly with those tyres. There is still quite a lot of the race to go. The softs will not be at their best at the end of the session. I am surprised that Casper has not decided to come in earlier just to try and clear some of this traffic, because again, he's going to be behind these guys. He will have fresher softs at the end, of course, so maybe that's what he's trying to rely on. Maybe he knows something that they don't. But I expect Azicombe or Casper to come in. Oh yeah, Azicombe comes in. So Casper's going as long as possible. Oh, and dear, Azicombe. Again, it's a very fast pit entry, and that's another 5-second time penalty, which he'll have to serve likely at the end of the race. So, yeah, that's a shame for Azicombe.
Yeah, chances of him getting into the points just got slightly slimmer. Jordan's still all over the back of Blizzard, still not able to do anything. And Blizzard's trying everything to get within that all-important 1-second window. Will G sets the fastest lap of the race, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's jumped up a few places and, yeah, gets ahead of the Haas of Jack Eater. The undercut from medium to soft tyres seems to be working exactly as you'd expect it. Will now in 12th place, trying to fight his way up the order. Another penalty for Azicombe. Things going bad to worse for one of the Ferrari drivers, and Daneyko, one of the few who's actually been overtaken out on track as well. It's not been a bad race from Daneyko. He's just sort of been in that bit of a middle battle at the moment. Although Duncan, his pace has absolutely gone on these medium tyres. 3.5 seconds behind Gamer. He's got Walters and Daneyko right behind him. He's going to have Fusilio behind him as well. Could we even see the Mercedes drop out the points?
Well, I mean, the way he's going, I mean, he's got that advantage. Walters is not in the delta at the moment, but soon will be the way it's going. I mean, yeah, it just seems like the setup of this car, it was suiting the softs okay, but on these mediums, it's just not very good whatsoever. But he gets a good exit onto that final section, so I think he should keep the position for now. Daneyko's right behind him. Fusilo rapidly catching up now. Although Will LG setting the fast lap for the time being, a 1:17.969. I think Casper may have a chance of beating that, but again, he's going to be at the back of this queue more than likely as he exits the pit lane, so he's got a lot of work to do. And given that all the guys ahead of him are on the same tyre, unless those softs dramatically drop off, I'm afraid Casper may be kind of stuck again. It's been a very trying evening for him, despite his best efforts.
Yeah, he's down in 15th at the moment. Benjamin's had a massive moment coming through turn number 1 and 2 as, oh, that could be important. Blizzard gets himself a time penalty. All of a sudden, Jordan's hunger to try and get that second place on track off of Blizzard. That is now, well, that's going to make a difference off track as well. So this is game of up into a net second position. All of a sudden, Blizzard in a net third, Jordan in a net fourth. Could be a second podium in a row for CRG Gamer. He normally does it on the alternate strategy. That Portimao practice seems to be doing him no harm whatsoever at this moment, and already Jordan, this is the closest I've seen him to the back of Blizzard for quite a while, to be honest. Since for soft tyre runs, is he going to be close enough to make a move? I think he might just have a chance here, you know.
Yeah, he's going for it. Blizzard's not even going to defend it, so I think there's going to be a bit of a tit for tat in terms of you pass me and I'll pass you on the next lap. Gamer doesn't even have to overtake these two, just needs to keep it clean, and I think that's what he's trying to do at the moment. 1.4 second gap between the top two at the moment, so Blizzard, yeah, just needs to keep it together at the moment. Can't afford to get a second penalty. But yeah, that's going to be the frustrating thing with Duncan. He's actually had a pretty clean race in terms of warnings and things like that, but he's not even within 3 seconds of the drivers ahead of him to take advantage. So P5 is the best he's going to do. Fusilone has now caught the back of this battle, and we're now going to see how good the softs are. Are they, you know, a big step up from the medium pace? If they're not, then yeah, Fusilone's just going to burn through those tires for the end of the race, and then he'll be probably stuck where he is in P8. I mean, it's still going to be a really good point score for him, but I think he'll be thinking, well, I've got these softs, please, can I get through these guys to get into a top 5 position, as, you know, Welters goes very deep into that corner and allows Duncan to a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, Daneco was almost into the back there of the Alpine driver as they were coming through that part of the circuit, so it's very interesting to see how this is going to work through turn number 14 for these drivers. Jordan far enough ahead of Blizzard that he doesn't have to worry about the former CRG man. I think we're going to have to get used to saying that over the rest of the season, but here we go. Daneco not close enough to Valters this time around. Fusilio still just frustratingly on the edge of that 1 second window. Did have the DRS this time around, and likewise Valters frustratingly can't get past Duncan. He has got 1 lap older tyres, and Daneco's got 1 lap older tyres than him, so that's maybe going to make things slightly harder as well. Up into 10th, but I think that's Ogiano's off circuit again with a broken front wing. Was there contact between them as we see a virtual safety car?
Oh, virtual safety car. Well, I mean, it's not really going to benefit anyone at the moment. I'm just trying to see. Yeah. Ooh, not sure what happened there. Yeah. Well, it looked like an unforced. Yeah, he's retired the car. Actually, looked like an unforced error. It doesn't suggest there's been any contact. Just going to check on him. So Ogiano out of the race. Yeah, front wing damage, and clearly didn't feel like the need to go on. But yeah, in terms of the incidents, let's see if there's been any sort of collision. And I think someone's just come into the pit lane. Who was that?
I think it was Fede coming into the pit. What long way down the order, was a free stop. Gives himself a chance of getting the fastest lap, but will only be pride for him down in 15th. We are back then to green flag action. DRS enabled. Has anyone gained a lot or lost a lot in that DRS, in that VSC period? Get the right 3-letter acronym eventually, but no one seems to have gained massively. Benjamin has picked up another penalty. Duncan's still got Valters all over the back of him, and this is going to be pretty close this time around, I think, between the Mercedes and the Alpine on the run down towards turn 1. In fact, I think the Alpine is going to get the move done fairly comfortably. Down the inside goes Valters. He is up into 5th position. Benjamin gets himself a time penalty, and Daneco's trying to go all the way around the outside as Duncan, as Benjamin retires in the pit lane. We said this race was going to light up in the final few laps. They're all starting to make their moves now.
Yeah, Duncan got all out of shape in the complex of 1 and 2 as Daneco dives down the inside on Duncan, trying to make contact. That may actually give Ogiano with the better traction a chance. Side by side, Daneco, Duncan go in the following section. They're so close, but leaving just enough room for each other. Weltons will be delighted by this. Thank you. I'm just going to scamper away from you lot. You can scrap for the end of the race. Weltons on for a top 5 finish in his re-debut in PSGL. He'll be absolutely delighted with that. Now, can Fusilo do anything? No, he's going to have to settle for the time being, but we could get a free wide in a few corners time.
Yeah, certainly. And all this hard battling between them might just help out ever so slightly some of those that are trying to catch up, like Xander, like Whale G, Jaquita, Asacombe, Casper, on those fresher soft tyres back towards the lead of this race. It is still Joost keeping that gap at the moment. 1.3 seconds he is ahead of Jordan, who's not really under any realistic pressure from Blizzard, who's not really under any realistic pressure from Gamer, but all Gamer knows has to do, very experienced, as are a lot of these drivers in this field now. He knows he just has to stay in contact, and I think as things stand at this moment, this performance from Gamer, I'm just going to try and do some very quick maths, would put him up into 4th in the championship, which would be a very decent result indeed, as Danirko and Fusilio both getting past Duncan there. He's just got to try and hang on to these drivers. He is struggling so much at this moment in time, and it's good news for his VSR stablemate Joost.
Yeah, I'm just trying to investigate whether Duncan got some damage at some stage, because the fact his pace has dropped off so much is a bit of a mystery to me. I mean, he got overtaken by Danirko, and Fusilio blasted past him at the same time into turn 1, and Duncan just had nothing to defend with. He had a bit of ERS, but just nothing at all. As Welters now will probably be defending from Danirko and Fusilio for that 5th place for the rest of the race. But yeah, just going to have a look through the stats, so I'll get back to you if I find out anything about potential damage.
Yeah, things just not going well for Duncan at the moment. 2 victories in a row before this race. He's just hoping that he can stay within DRS range and secure some consolation points for 3rd place at this moment in time. Mercedes are Constructors' Championship leaders as well, of course. Not looking good for them, and we will be seeing Red Bull most likely retake that championship lead as Fusilio down the inside on Danirko gets himself up into 6th place. Now, has he got enough left on those soft tyres in the final 6 laps of this race to get himself into 5th? Would be a fantastic performance on the alternate strategy, the only one to really make a massive success of it at this moment in time. Back towards the battle for officially 3rd and 4th on track. It is currently 2nd and 3rd, but they will lose that on penalties. Jordan just dropping a bit further back at the moment, and Blizzard with plenty more ERS. He knows this 2 points could be important at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to try and get as many points as he can. But yeah, it's looking good for you. This will be the first time this season that one driver's had massive daylight in terms of the Drivers' Championship. So Joost looking for victory number 4. You know, he had 3 victories this season. You think, well, he must be dominating the championship, having more wins than anyone else, but it hasn't been that way. Such has been the unpredictability of the 8 rounds before this one. But yeah, this looks like quite a landmark moment for Joost as it stands.
Yeah, what might help Jordan out here, absolutely brilliantly for him, is George's Ghost Car has given him a nice bit of DRS, and that is the closest Blizzard has been for a long time to the back of the McLaren, and he's not able to do anything about it. Asacone really struggling at the moment. He's picked up a few penalties in short succession. 14 seconds now with the Ferrari driver, who I think we're going to see dive into the pits, and judging by that speed into the pit lane, he is going to become another retirement. The 6th one of this race, then we are, well, 7th actually, including George's. We are down to officially 13 runners at this moment in time. Fusilio has closed onto the back of Valters within half a second at the moment. He's got 4 laps to go. Is he going to be able to work his way up the order? And Duncan, he's staying there now. I don't think he has to worry about anyone further back. The difficulty of overtaking on this track means the alternate strategy just hasn't worked out fantastically for a lot of these drivers. We're only going to see 2 soft runners in the top 10 most likely.
Yeah, and that just shows you what a brilliant job Fusilio's done. I mean, he had a fantastic first stint getting up there, and he's got the overtakes done. So yeah, he's on for a P5, which would be his 2nd best result of the season. He got 4th place in the opening round of the season at Bahrain. It's been very difficult for him to get points since then. But yeah, he'll be fully deserving of that. And now he's right on the back at Welters, who will not be an easy customer to pass. So Welters has been doing all the hunting in this race from the overtakes we've seen from him, proving it's not impossible to overtake here, but now he is very much the hunted. Yeah,
certainly just a bit too far ahead, I think, this time for Fusilio to do anything, who has actually scored lower points in the last couple of races, so this would be a 3rd points finish over the season. 8th and 9th in the previous 2, 6th or even a 5th would obviously be a big boost to his order. Gamer still just hanging on the back of Blizzard and Jordan at the moment. Knows he doesn't need to do a lot, knows just staying in contact will be good enough for him to get a 2nd place, move up to 4th in the championship in that best of the rest battle. He's realistically way too far back to have a realistic championship challenge, especially with Joost and Blizzard still scoring very good points in this race, but he'll be delighted with how it's going at the moment. Started last season fairly well, just sort of tailed off towards the middle and the end. Looks like that's not going to be the case this time around and could be on for another second place. Could we even see Gamer pick up a victory in remaining races this season? We'll have to wait and see. But at the lead of this race, Joost, he's looked absolutely fantastic all race so far. 3.3 seconds ahead at this moment in time, and still, well, I say still, he has actually got one warning at the moment. Shame on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's all started with that qualifying session. I mean, that lap he put in was such a display of dominance to the rest of the field. They had a bit more in hand over the field, and that's exactly how it's worked out. I mean, very close running in the early stages of the softs for the top 10, especially those in the top 5. But once they switched in the mediums, he's had significantly more pace than the drivers behind him. Even without the time penalties, he is comfortably ahead, and he's only just picked up his first warning, so he's had a fantastic race. As Fusilo, I think the stops are starting to wear off just a little bit, and Wilson's actually going to get DRS from the Ghost car, so that's one less lap he has to defend. But yeah, Fusilo, yeah, it might be fading a little bit in his challenge, but still on for a very tremendous P6.
Yeah, still would be an absolutely fantastic result. One driver on the on the soft tyres whose challenge doesn't look to be fading quite as much. Will G all over the back of Xander at the moment. Knows he can't afford to go for a risky lunge though, because he's got Jack Eater not too far behind him. Did spend the first stint of the race completely stuck behind Jack Eater. How things have changed in the second stint is now the Haas car who is right on his tail. Gamer really close to the back of Blizzard and Jordan here. Doesn't need to pass either of these cars, and I don't think he's going to be able to, even with the DRS and a fantastic helping of ERS as well. So no change up there. Blizzard actually, as I say that, down the inside of Jordan. Caught him up very late on the straight there. Jordan struggling on his ERS. That might just cost him a podium here.
Yes, and Will LG easily passing Xander for P9. And it just has to, yeah, very nice overtake there, because he was taking a lot of speed in turn 1, but managed to keep it between the wide lines.
Yeah, now Jordan's just got to try and recover that electrical energy and try to get that move back next time around. Fusilio, but we all started, I was about to say we've got an extra car in that. That is, of course, George's Ghost car, so we haven't got someone else who's caught up to the back. As Jack Eater and Will have made contact! They've made contact coming through that part of the circuit. Xander has as well, all three of them off the circuit. What on earth's happening here? Further down the order, Jack Eater's in the middle of Xander at the moment. This is going to get very confusing. Casper in 12th place at the moment. He might pick up some points if there's any warnings and penalties to come from all of that. But Will and Jack Eater working their way past Xander, not as cleanly as they'd like to, and Xander's pretty much bumping Jack Eater around the circuit.
It's got a chance flying point, but now Jordan trying to put Blizzard under pressure for P2. This is for all the marbles in terms of the second and third steps on the podium. Gamer just has to have one clean lap, and he's got jobbed onto. He's not going to be involved in this, but yeah, Jordan not close enough. And then further back, will Casper have any chance for a point? No, they've just kind of spread out again. So yeah, Duncan safely in P8 for the time being. Will LG picking P9. That might get as steer as that one. Didn't quite catch all of it. Fusilo unable to get past Walters, but yeah, battle still rages on for P2.
Yeah, battle still raging on for P2. Jordan can't quite get ahead of Blizzard. Fusilio's too far behind Walters. We saw Casper there barging wheels as he managed to get past Xander. We've seen a Mercedes and Red Bull barge wheels a few times in Formula 1, but for first and second, not for 11th and 12th place. Casper, though, still pretty close to the back of Jack Eater, so a slight mistake. You never know what could happen through these different positions, but it all looks as though it is pretty much sealed at the front of the race, and he has barely put a foot wrong, has Joost, our championship leader. It was an absolutely dominant performance in qualifying from the Dutch driver as he rounds turn 14, gets onto the throttle for the final time through the long right-hander of turn number 15. It's going to be a fourth victory of the season, extend his championship lead. The Prince of Portugal is Joost here today. He takes the victory. Blizzard will cross the line in second, but that will go to CRG Gamer. Fede's crashed out on the final lap of the race. Jordan just misses out on the podium. Walters takes 5th position. Fusilio 6th. Danirko 7th. Duncan in 8th. Will is in 9th, and it is going to be Jack Eater by 76 thousandths of a second who takes the final point.
Wow, what a drive from Joost. That was Verstappen-like. Excellent control. Once he got ahead out of DRS in the second stint, no looking back. I mean, none of the other field had a match for him on those medium tyres. His pace was excellent. I mean, look at him prancing his way onto the stage, and so he might. I mean, that is fourth win of the season. He's taking command of this championship. The first time any driver's really done that this season. It's been so close. No one's had a lead of more than 16 points, a race win, but that's what we're getting now. Nightmare race for Mercedes. 8th place for Duncan, no points for Casper. So the Constructors' Championship has once again swung in the favour of Red Bull.
Yeah, Red Bull taking the lead in the Constructors' Championship. I can tell you, Yost is now on 96 points, Duncan on 74, Blizzard on 66. So it's a 22-point lead for Yost, who took his 4th victory in the season. 2 podiums in a row for CRG Gamer, doing it the normal way rather than the alternate strategy way. This time around from 4th place, keeping it keen, Blizzard picks up that final podium slot, courtesy of the move on the penultimate lap. Jordan just missing out. Great return to the top tier for Volters in 5th place. Cusilio in 6th. Driver of the day from the game. I'd argue you could say Yost's performance probably just tips the balance in that one. Dereko, some more good points in 7th. For the medium stint for Duncan did not go to plan whatsoever. He is in 8th. Will and Jaquita pick up the final points after a very interesting final couple of laps. Casper just misses out, as does Xander. Fede set the final lap and retired right at the end of the race. George's, I believe, had frame rate issues. It can plague some of the drivers on the PlayStation 4 rather than the PlayStation 5. And we saw Asacombe, Benjamin, Ogiano, Leo, Midnight and Lars all retire from what was probably a bit what we expected from Portugal. At the beginning, not loads happening. Yost looking very good. And then at the end of the race, everyone thought, do you know what, we've only got 5 or 6 laps to go. We've just got to go for this.
Yeah, I mean, the race pretty much played out as we expected. I mean, there wasn't much going on first stint, but yeah, it definitely mentions to Waters and Fuselo, who respectively on their different strategies, I think outside of the top 3 were the best today. I mean, great re-debut for Waters. I mean, getting P5 straight off the bat just shows his class, really. And, he'll be proving, yeah, I should have been in this top tier all along. But the F2, or was the F2 championship leader, back with a bang. And, we may see him fighting for podiums later on.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, other people who put in good performances as well. I said we're used to Gamer seeing him do it on the alternate strategy. Maybe those races on the PC did help. He looked so good today. Normally he's a bit slower in qualifying. 4th place, 2nd in the race because of getting no penalties. Really great all-around performance from Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gamer and Blizzard doing CRG proud today. But yeah, Gamer, one of the informed drivers, 2 podiums in a row. He's going to have to find some way of stepping it up even more to get that race win, such as the quality of the drivers we normally see fighting for, the win and use, a 4th win for him. It's going to be very difficult to stop him. A very different track coming up after Portugal, of course. But yeah, Gamer definitely up to 4th in the championship and completely on merit.
Yeah, certainly. Brilliant performance from him. You can see it is Canada before the break week. It is now guaranteed that Yost will be leading the championship when we have the break week for the US Grand Prix. So he will be absolutely delighted with that. As we are getting ready then for the drivers' interviews. Mark, I will hand it over to you.
Well, good evening once again, and welcome to the post-race interview for the PSGL F1 Portuguese Grand Prix, the first one ever. And your top 3 have joined the chat. First of all, your race winner and championship leader, now by 22 points, I believe, VSR Juice, taking his 4th win of the season. And looking at the way round 9 went, this was the most dominant win of the season on merit. So, Juice, would you say that was your most complete drive of the season so far?
I think this was my best race. One of my best races I've done. Qualifying was pretty good. Lap was pretty good, and then the race. I knew I had confidence, but I didn't know I was able to make a gap and to drove away. But very happy with that, and yeah.
So, it was a very close fought race in the first stint, but once you sort of broke away after the pit stop for the mediums, I mean, did you have any real concerns with sort of ERS or fuel, or was it simply a case of just controlling the gap?
In the beginning, in the first few laps on the soft stint, I tried to make a gap to Blizzard, but then I had a big slide in that weird turn. Then I had a gap. I had a gap of 1.2 seconds, but I had no ERS. But Blizzard had also no ERS, so had to drive clean and to save some ERS, but Blizzard was pushing as well. So
You have now established the largest gap that the season has seen so far, and we have one more race before our first season break. But after 9 rounds of the season with a 22-point gap, I mean, is there anything you could have done better this season? I mean, how happy must you be with that championship lead at this stage?
yeah, I'm very happy. But the only thing that can be better is the first race of every season. I always score 0 points in the first race of every season I drove in PSGL. So I think that's the only thing I have to change.
Traditions.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations once again for a fantastic victory, and we will speak to you again soon.
Thank you. Bye. And
finishing P2 for Williams Racing, it is a very familiar face for those regular PSGL F1 viewers. It is once again on the podium, just as he was last week. It is Sam, otherwise CRG Gamer. CRG may have folded, as we sadly saw on social media earlier on, but the spirit of CRG very much lives on through drives such as yours. No penalties, and that made the difference today for you.
Yeah, exactly. Always knew the penalties would be probably a factor coming into this race because it's very, very easy to run a slightly up a track or get double warnings or anything. So here's hoping none of them get removed. But yeah, it made a change to have a fairly decent qualifying rather than being on the alternate strategy, which I seem to be on pretty much every time. Managed to start from the front and finish at the front. So yeah, that was nice. But in terms of the race, it was really just... It was very difficult to keep up, if anything. Had to push a lot every lap, and if you made one mistake, you'd lose that DRS, like Duncan did, who was just outside out the pits, and you saw how much he dropped back. So yeah, it was very difficult. As much as there wasn't a lot of action up front for probably everyone to see, it was. I can assure you, in the cockpit, it was extremely challenging, and yeah, had to push a lot. So very happy to come away with the P2.
Well, you're up to 4th in the championship now, Sam. And so compared to, how the season started so well, then you had a few difficult races, going into the sort of the run-in, as it were, for the last few races of the season, starting from Canada next week. What are your sort of ambitions for the rest of the season? Sort of to be the best of the rest in terms of those other, or could you even threaten maybe to get 3rd in the championship?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I wouldn't. If I didn't know the championship standards at all, I would not have thought from my season I'd be P4. So I guess we'll take that. I know the top 3 are quite a way ahead. So yeah, I think the aim probably to cement sort of the P4 position would be nice. But yeah, you never know what's going to happen, and we just have to take it one race at a time because we're starting up at the front this time, but I'm sure there'll be plenty more races where I'm starting a lot further down. So yeah, we'll have to see what's happened, but yeah, we'll keep pushing as per usual, and we'll have to see what happens.
Well, congratulations on your P2, Sam, and speak to you soon.
Thank you.
And rounding up the podium, representing AlphaTauri, he had a difficult race at Shanghai last week, but very much back to form with his 5th podium of the season. CRG Blizzards, perhaps not quite the victory you were aiming for tonight, but still a podium to kind of get your season back on track after a difficult round 8.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a good result. Big confidence boost because my last couple of races haven't exactly been that good. So, I mean, even with the penalty, my pace was pretty good. Juice was just incredible, to be honest. I mean, he was so fast and so consistent and didn't get a penalty either. I mean, I don't think anyone was going to match him today.
Well, I guess the big news really overshadowed this race was sort of the news about CRG. So, Sam has said quite a bit on social media about it, but what are your thoughts on the CRG after what we heard today?
Yeah, it's a real shame, to be honest, but over the last couple of weeks, I mean, it's been on a downward spiral. So, I mean, it wasn't too surprising, but 2 years with CRG, I'm definitely going to miss it.
Now, focusing back on PSGL F1, that's 5 podiums now, still very much in title contention. What do you feel you have to do to sort of unbalanced use who seems to be in a position where for the first time this season we have one driver taking, not an unassailable lead, but like a commanding sort of position in the championship standings.
I mean, I really don't know what I can do personally. I mean, I'll have to have a good race and then hopefully it will knock his confidence, maybe. But right now, I mean, it's going to be hard to stop him.
Yes, I couldn't have put it better actually after what we see in the race today. But Canada next, a track where you've had mixed fortunes in the past. So of course, as is tradition for Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, penalties could play a very important role. Are you going to be practicing those lines a little bit more just to ensure it doesn't come down to penalties again in terms of the podium positions?
Yeah, but also a problem I've really had is the walls. I mean, I've gotten damaged a lot at Canada with hitting the walls, particularly turn 5, I think it is. So, yeah, I mean, probably the walls might be more important, to be honest. I mean, penalties, yeah, it's really hard to avoid penalties in Canada, one of the worst for it. But the walls, I mean, me personally, I struggle a lot trying to not hit them. So,
Well, being a former two-time PSGL F1 champion, let's hope you don't end up in the healthy embrace of the Wall of Champions. But thanks for your words tonight, and congratulations on the P3.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Blizzard for joining us, and of course, Gamer.
And that concludes your interview for the PSGL F1 Portuguese Grand Prix. Back to you, Luke.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks to them joining us, and of course, Blizzard and Gamer and Yoast as well for joining us for the interviews. And as Sam said, not necessarily, maybe not the most interesting to watch, but a lot going on with the drivers, a lot of concentration involved around this new circuit, and I think one the drivers will have enjoyed.
Yes, very intense race. Perhaps, I mean, we've been spoiled, haven't we, for entertainment this season? In some ways, it was almost a similar race to Zandvoort's. Obviously, much wider circuit than Zandvoort, but the way the race played out in terms of that straight, dry race strategy, we got some decent action in the final closing stages, as we suspected we might. But I think we'll see a lot more action in terms of overtaking Canada next week, which is always a chaotic street circuit race.
Yeah, certainly. And obviously, last one before the break, a lot of drivers will be trying to prove themselves before that break, trying to get themselves into good shape of mind going into the final few races. And for Blizzard and Duncan, just trying to stop Yost extending his lead in the championship again.
Yes, I mean, Yost has looked very, very good in recent races, but this was his most complete evening. I mean, arguably the best qualifying lap of the season to have that sort of gap, and then got a perfect start. I mean, the start could not have been better. Jordan and Blizzard were nowhere near him in terms of that start time reaction and getting up through the gears, and then never really looked under major threat in the first stint, but he was one mistake away. He still had to really be concentrated in the first stint, but then the second stint on the mediums, he had far more pace than the drivers behind, and was just able to eke out a gap. Very Sebastian Vettel like actually his drive today. The way he sort of almost a lights the flag victory. So yeah, biggest lead of the season. And hopefully it will sort of be closed back in for us, so we still get a title battle. But yeah, if he keeps performing like that, he is without doubt at the moment the favourite to win his first championship in PSGL F1.
Yeah, VSR Yost looking very good in the PSGL PlayStation F1 Championship, and VSR also looking good in the PSGL VRT Esports Cup. That will be the next action live here on the Premier Sim Gaming League's YouTube channel Friday 8 PM with James Head and Aidan Carter taking you through round 3 of that around the Spanish Grand Prix. PC leagues are taking a break this week because of esports, so we wish all the drivers who were involved in PSGL F1 on PC the best of luck for that. PSGL F2 on the PC will be back a week on Wednesday. The next PlayStation League action will be Thursday, Sunday, and ourselves, of course, next Monday from the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. It is now 4 wins this season for VSR Yost. An absolutely dominant victory from pole position. Can Blizzard and Duncan close up next time around, or will we see someone else go into the break taking a victory? You'll have to find out in a week's time to wait and see what happens there. Thank you to the drivers for joining with the interview. Thank you to Mark for conducting the interviews and joining me in the comms box. Thank you so much to all your guys for watching and your comments in the chat. And we will see you in a week's time at Canada. Take care of yourselves and good night.
Obrigado.